Welcome, everyone. Today, we're diving into a comprehensive guide designed specifically for beginners. We'll explore key terms and concepts in cybersecurity. Whether you're new to the field or just looking to sharpen your understanding, this training will set a solid foundation for what's ahead. Let's get started. We're really glad you're here. Cybersecurity can feel like a whole new language at first, full of terms, concepts, and acronyms that might seem overwhelming. That's completely normal. We want you to approach this training with patience and curiosity. Go over the material more than once. Repetition is one of the best ways to make these ideas stick. Remember, every expert started as a beginner. Take it one step at a time, and don't hesitate to revisit anything. Your journey to confidence starts now. In this section, we're diving into the most common network-based attacks that cybercriminals use. Knowing how these attacks work is crucial. It's the first step to building a strong defense. We'll cover everything from ARP poisoning to DDoS attacks. Each one will be clearly explained, with real-world examples to help you spot and respond to threats effectively. Let's get started. Let's talk about ARP poisoning, a sneaky network attack. It works by sending fake ARP messages on a local network. These messages link the attacker's device to the IP address of a real, trusted host. Imagine an attacker on a company Wi-Fi sending false replies. Suddenly, all the traffic meant for the network gateway gets rerouted through the attacker's device. This lets them intercept and potentially manipulate sensitive data without anyone noticing. It's a powerful way to hijack communication. Let's talk about broadcast storms, a serious network problem caused by too much broadcast traffic. When a device, like a misconfigured switch, floods the network with constant broadcast packets, it quickly eats up bandwidth and overwhelms other devices. The result? Slow network performance or even total outages. Alongside this, we have bluejacking, where someone sends unsolicited messages to nearby Bluetooth devices without permission. Imagine an attacker in a cafe sending a malicious contact card to phones around them, hoping to trick users into accepting harmful data. Let's talk about two common cyberattacks: denial of service, or DoS, and DNS poisoning. A DoS attack floods a system with so much traffic, it simply can't keep up. Illegitimate users get locked out. Imagine a business website crashing just when customers need it most. DNS poisoning works differently. It corrupts the address book of the internet, redirecting users to fake sites without them realizing it. So, someone trying to visit their bank might end up on a scam site instead, putting their information at risk. Let's talk about two common cyber threats: the evil twin and distributed denial of service, or DDoS attacks. An evil twin is a fake Wi-Fi hotspot that pretends to be a real network. Imagine a hacker setting up airport-free Wi-Fi to trick travelers into connecting. Once connected, their data can be stolen. On the other hand, a DDoS attack uses many compromised devices, often a botnet, to flood a target with traffic until it crashes. Both are about disruption, but one steals data, the other shuts things down. Let's look at some common network attacks that can disrupt or compromise systems. A ping flood overwhelms a target with rapid ping requests, while the ping of death sends oversized packets that can crash devices. Replay attacks capture and resend valid data to sneak in unauthorized access. Smurf attacks use spoofed IPs to flood victims with replies. SYN floods exploit the TCP handshake to drain server resources, and UDP floods bombard targets with UDP packets. Then there's the man-in-the-middle attack, where an attacker secretly intercepts communication between two parties, like stealing banking info over public Wi-Fi without anyone realizing. Now we're diving into the world of malware, the different kinds of malicious software that can disrupt, damage, or sneak into systems without permission. Knowing these types is key to spotting threats and defending against them. We'll look at everything from adware and ransomware to rootkits, spyware, Trojan horses, viruses, logic bombs, and more. Each one has its own tricks, and understanding them helps us stay one step ahead. Let's break down three common types of malicious software: ransomware, malware, and adware. Ransomware locks your files and demands payment to unlock them. A famous example is WannaCry, which spread worldwide and asked for Bitcoin to restore access. Malware is any software meant to harm or sneak into your system, like a fake invoice email that secretly installs ransomware. Then there's adware, which bombards you with unwanted ads, often bundled with free apps, showing pop-ups without your permission. Understanding these helps us stay one step ahead. Let's talk about 3 sneaky types of malware: Trojan horses, spyware, and rootkits. A Trojan horse pretends to be something useful, like a free game, but once you run it, it secretly opens a backdoor for attackers to get in. Spyware is even more covert. It spies on your activity, capturing things like passwords without you knowing. And rootkits go deeper, hiding inside your operating system to give attackers secret control while staying invisible to security tools. Let's talk about 2 types of malicious code: viruses and logic bombs. A virus attaches itself to files and spreads when those files are opened, often corrupting or deleting data along the way. Imagine a macro virus hidden in a Word document, activating as soon as you open it, then jumping to other files. A logic bomb, on the other hand, stays hidden dormant until certain conditions are met. For example, a disgruntled employee might plant code that deletes critical files if their account is removed. Both are dangerous, but they work in very different ways. Let's dive into the different ways attackers try to break into systems. They use a variety of techniques and strategies to slip past security controls. Their goal: to gain unauthorized access to sensitive data and networks. Understanding these attack methods is key. It helps us anticipate threats and build stronger defenses. We're not just looking at what they do, but how and why they do it. This insight is crucial for staying one step ahead. Let's talk about backdoors. These are hidden or undocumented ways to sneak past normal security checks. Imagine a secret admin account left in software, letting attackers log in without any credentials. It's a serious risk because it bypasses all the usual defenses. Now, an attack vector is the route an attacker takes to get inside. For example, a phishing email might deliver ransomware to an employee's computer, locking down important files. Understanding these helps us spot and stop threats before they cause damage. Let's talk about 2 common attack methods: buffer overflow and brute force attacks. A buffer overflow happens when a program tries to store more data than its buffer can handle. This overflow spills into nearby memory, letting attackers inject harmful code and take control. For example, a specially crafted input string that's too long can trigger this. On the other hand, brute force attacks are all about persistence, trying every possible password or key until the right one's found. Automated tools can test thousands of guesses per second, often cracking weak passwords like password 123. Cross-site attacks come in different forms, but 2 stand out for their impact. First, cross-site scripting, or XSS, where attackers inject harmful scripts into web pages. These scripts can steal session cookies or login details from anyone who views the page. Imagine a forum comment hiding a script that takes over your account without you knowing. Then, there's cross-site request forgery, or CSRF. This one tricks your browser into sending commands you never intended, like quietly making a bank transfer while you're logged in. Both exploit trust, but in very different ways. Let's talk about 2 common attack methods that target system security. First, directory traversal. This is when an attacker tricks a web application into revealing files outside its normal boundaries. They might use something like // sequences to climb up the folder tree and access sensitive files. Then there's the dictionary attack, a method where attackers try a long list of common passwords, hopping to guess the right one and break in. Both rely on exploiting predictable patterns, making strong defenses essential. Let's talk about some common social engineering attacks, ways attackers trick people into giving up sensitive information. Whaling targets high-profile executives, like CEOs, with fraudulent messages. Vishing uses phone calls to deceive victims. Shoulder surfing is simply watching someone enter passwords in public. Spoofing means faking identities, like emails or caller IDs. Watering hole attacks compromise websites that targets often visit. Dumpster diving involves searching trash for secrets. Farming redirects users to fake sites without them knowing. Phishing sends deceptive emails, and spear phishing zeroes in on specific individuals or organizations. Let's dive into the foundational principles that form the backbone of all cybersecurity efforts. We're talking about key ideas like authentication and authorization, how we verify identities and control access. Then there's confidentiality, integrity, and availability, the pillars that keep data safe, accurate, and accessible when needed. Grasping these concepts is crucial. They shape the way we think about security, helping us build a mindset that's strong and resilient. Let's break down 3 key concepts that keep our systems secure and reliable. First, availability, making sure systems and data are accessible to the right people, exactly when they need them. Think of a DDoS attack, which floods servers and blocks legitimate users from important services. Next, authorization. This is about controlling who gets access to what, like an HR employee seeing employee records, but not payroll data. Finally, authentication, verifying who you are, often with a password plus a one-time code sent to your phone before you can log in. These 3 work together to protect and manage access effectively. Let's talk about integrity. It's all about keeping data accurate and unchanged, whether it's being stored or sent somewhere. If someone tries to mess with it without permission, integrity helps us catch that. Think of digital signatures. They make sure software hasn't been tampered with before you install it. Alongside that, confidentiality keeps sensitive information locked down, so only the right people can see it. Encryption is a great example, hiding credit card details during online shopping to keep them safe from prying eyes. Let's talk about multi-factor authentication, or MFA. It's a way to double-check who you are by requiring 2 or more different types of proof. That might be something you know, like a password, plus something you have, like your phone, or even something you are, like a fingerprint. For example, entering a password and then approving a push notification on your mobile device. This fits into a broader strategy called defense in depth, layering multiple security measures so no single weakness can bring everything down. Let's break down some key concepts in risk management. Risk itself is the chance of loss or damage when a threat takes advantage of a vulnerability. Risk assessment is about spotting and sizing up these risks to what we value most. Then, risk management is the coordinated effort to keep those risks under control. We do this through risk mitigation, putting controls in place to lower the chances or impact of problems. Sometimes we transfer risk, like buying insurance to pass responsibility on. Even after all this, some risk remains, that's residual risk. Together, these shape an organization's security posture, how strong and ready it is against cyber threats. In this section, we're diving into the essential tools and technologies that cybersecurity professionals rely on every day. These are the building blocks for defending systems, spotting threats early, and keeping data safe. We'll cover everything from firewalls and encryption to honeypots and vulnerability scanners. Understanding how each tool works and how they fit together is crucial for creating a strong, layered defense that stands up to evolving challenges. Let's explore these tools carefully and see how they protect us. Let's explore some key tools and technologies that keep our digital world secure. Audit trails are like a diary for systems. They log activity, helping us spot unauthorized access, like tracking login history. CAPTCHA tests protect us from bots by asking users to identify distorted text. Ciphers are algorithms that scramble data, like the Caesar cipher shifting letters. Cookies store information in your browser, keeping you logged in across sessions. Each plays a vital role in safeguarding information. Let's dive into some key tools and technologies that keep our data safe and networks secure. We start with DES, an older encryption method using 56-bit keys, still found in some legacy systems. Then there's DLP, which stops sensitive info from leaving, like blocking emails with social security numbers. Digital signatures prove authenticity, ensuring updates are legit. Encryption scrambles data, so only authorized users can read it. Firewalls act like gatekeepers, filtering traffic by rules. Hashes create unique data fingerprints for integrity checks. Finally, honeypots and honeynets lure attackers in, letting us study their moves without risk. Let's dive into some key tools and technologies that keep our network safe. We have NIDS, which watches network traffic for anything suspicious, and NIPS, which takes it a step further by actively blocking threats. Then there's packet filtering, the firewall rules that control what gets through. Password crackers and rainbow tables help us understand how attackers might break in, while salting protects against those attacks by adding randomness. Tools like protocol analyzers and vulnerability scanners help us spot weaknesses before others do. And for secure connections, we rely on SSH and VPNs. Finally, sandboxes give us a safe place to test risky code without harm. Let's dive into the core procedures and methods that cybersecurity experts rely on every day. These are the steps they take to spot threats, respond quickly, and keep vulnerabilities in check. It's a continuous cycle, identifying risks, analyzing them, and managing the response to protect systems and data. Understanding these security processes is key to staying one step ahead in a world where threats evolve constantly. Let's break down the core security processes that keep systems safe. An ethical hacker is a professional authorized to test for weaknesses. Footprinting means gathering as much info as possible about a target before any attack. Hardening involves tightening up systems by removing anything unnecessary. Incident management is all about coordinating the response when something goes wrong. Incident response follows, with steps to contain and recover after a breach. Penetration testing simulates attacks to uncover flaws. Vulnerability assessment identifies and ranks those flaws. Finally, vulnerability management is the ongoing effort to detect and fix issues before they're exploited. Let's dive into the core building blocks of modern IT infrastructure. We're talking about virtualization, virtual machines, network zones, and hypervisors. The key components that shape how systems run and data stays protected. Getting a solid grasp on these concepts is crucial. They form the foundation for securing the environments where everything from apps to sensitive information lives and operates. This is the backbone of infrastructure and architecture in today's digital world. Let's break down some key infrastructure concepts that power modern IT environments. First, a virtual machine, or VM, is basically a software copy of a physical computer. It runs its own operating system and apps, all inside your existing system. Virtualization is the broader process of creating these virtual versions of hardware or networks, helping organizations save costs and boost efficiency. Clusters are groups of servers working together to keep services running smoothly, even if one fails. A DMZ, or demilitarized zone, acts as a buffer between internal networks and the outside world, protecting sensitive systems. And finally, the hypervisor is the software that creates and manages these virtual machines, making it all possible. Let's talk about two key elements in data protection and security standards. First, PII, that's personally identifiable information. This includes anything that can point directly to an individual, like names, social security numbers, emails, or biometric data. Protecting PII isn't optional. Laws like GDPR and HIPAA require it. A breach exposing customer names and credit card details is a clear violation. Then there's CVE, a public database listing known security flaws. Each vulnerability gets a unique ID, helping teams track and fix issues consistently. Both are essential in keeping data safe. Let's take a closer look at the common vulnerabilities and misconfigurations that often trip up organizations. These are the weak spots in cybersecurity, the gaps that attackers look for. Understanding these challenges is crucial. It's the first step toward building defenses that actually work. When we know where the risks lie, we can start to fix them and keep our systems safer in the long run. Let's look at some key security issues we often face. Grayware is software that's not outright malicious, but still behaves in ways we don't want, like adware tracking your habits without permission. Then there's vulnerabilities, weak spots in systems that attackers can exploit, often because of unpatched software. False negatives happen when a threat slips past detection, while false positives are false alarms that block safe activities. Understanding these helps us build stronger defenses.